The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark void between stars. Its metal halls stretched for miles, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Today was special. Today, the Galactic Council would decide what to do with the humans. Captain Lee Dae-ho walked down the long corridor toward the main chamber. His black uniform looked plain next to the bright colors and strange shapes of alien clothing around him. Other beings pointed at him and whispered. Some laughed. He kept his face calm, but his hands were tight fists at his sides. Dr. Park Ji-woo waited for him at the chamber doors. She was small and quiet, with tired eyes behind thick glasses. For 3 years, she had been the only human working with the Council's science team. Now even that job was ending. "Are you ready for this?" she asked in Korean. Lee Dae-ho nodded. "We knew this day would come." The doors opened with a deep hum. Inside, the chamber was huge. Hundreds of alien delegates sat, in curved rows that rose up like a bowl. At the center stood a tall platform where speakers would address the council. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet that humans could not name. Commander Kim So-ra was already inside, sitting in the small human section. She wore her military uniform with pride, even though everyone here thought human soldiers were a joke. Her dark eyes watched everything, missing nothing. The session began with the sound of a deep bell. High Counselor Vextar stood up. He was from the Velkarian Empire, tall and thin with purple skin and 4 arms. His voice was smooth but cold. "Honored delegates," he said. "We gather today to address the human problem." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Lee Dae-ho felt his jaw tighten, but he did not move. Vextar continued. "For 50 years we have watched this species. We have tried to help them join our civilized galaxy. But the truth is clear. Humans are not ready." A delegate from the Nexari collective stood up. Her name was Prime Singer Yelnara. Her blue skin glowed softly, and her large black eyes held no warmth for humans. "The evidence speaks for itself," she said. "Humans still use chemical rockets to travel between planets. They fight wars with metal bullets and bombs. They cannot even leave their own star system without our help." More laughter. Lee Dae-ho wanted to speak, but he knew it would not help. The council had already made up their minds. Another alien stood. This one looked like a giant insect with golden wings. "In my sector, human traders beg for scraps of our old technology. They offer raw materials like primitive tribes offering shiny stones. Their lifespans are so short," added another voice. "How can they understand the long plans needed for galactic civilization?" The insults continued for an hour. Each species took turns explaining why humans were not good enough. They talked about human wars, human poverty, human ignorance. They showed pictures of Earth's polluted cities and called humans destroyers of worlds. Dr. Park Ji-woo listened to it all. Her face stayed calm, but her hand slowly moved to her sleeve. Hidden there was a small device no bigger than a coin. She pressed it twice, then once, then 3 times. The signal would travel faster than light to Earth. Lee Dae-ho was finally allowed to speak. He walked to the center platform and looked up at the sea of alien faces. Most looked bored, some looked disgusted. A few looked almost sad, like they were sorry for him. "Honored Council," he began. "Humanity asks only for the chance to prove ourselves." "You have had 50 years, Vextar interrupted. "What have you proven? That you cannot master dimensional science? That you fight among yourselves? That you pollute your own world?" "We are learning," Lee Dae-ho said. "Too slowly," said Prime Singer Yelnara. "While you learned to make better guns, we built cities in folded space. While you argued about borders, we learned to travel between dimensions. You are children playing with fire." The chamber erupted in agreement. Voices in dozens of languages all said the same thing. Humans were not ready. Commander Kim So-ra watched it all and felt anger burn in her chest. These aliens had no idea what humans could really do. They saw only what Earth wanted them to see. The real truth was hidden in places like the Gobi facility, where Director Yoon Tae-min and his team had been working on projects that would shock these proud aliens. The voting began. One by one, each species cast their decision. The Velcarians voted to restrict human travel beyond the Sol system. The Nexari agreed. The insect-like Zephyrians voted yes. Even the usually neutral crystalline minds voted to contain humanity. The Council has decided, Vextar announced. Humanity will be restricted to their home system until they can prove they deserve galactic citizenship. No human ships will be allowed beyond the Jupiter orbital limit. All human diplomatic missions will be closed. This restriction will remain in place for no less than 100 Earth years. The chamber filled with satisfied murmurs. The alien problem was solved. Humanity had been put in its place. Li Di-ho stood alone on the platform, surrounded by beings who thought his species was worthless, but he was not afraid. He was not even angry anymore. He was almost excited. Is there anything humanity wishes to say before this session ends? Vextar asked. It was supposed to be polite, but his tone made it clear he expected nothing important. Li Di-ho looked up at the aliens one more time. Only this, he said quietly. You have made your choice. History will remember this day, and so will we. Some aliens laughed at his words. Others looked confused. What could humans do? They were trapped in their own star system now. They had no power, no advanced technology, no way to challenge the Council's decision. Dr. Park Ji-woo gathered her things and prepared to leave. Her job here was done, but her real work was just beginning. The signal she had sent to Earth would change everything. She thought about Director Yoon and Dr. Choi Han-sol working in their hidden laboratory. She thought about the massive shape sleeping in the dimensional pocket they had created. Commander Kim So-ra stood and saluted Li Di-ho. It was a human gesture that meant nothing to the aliens watching. But both officers knew what it really meant. It meant the games were over. It meant their people would no longer pretend to be weak. As the three humans left the chamber, alien delegates celebrated their victory. They had solved the human problem without violence or war. They had, been civilized and fair. Humanity would learn its place, and perhaps in a century or two, they might be ready to join galactic society. High Counselor Vexitar was especially pleased. The Velcarian Empire had wanted to eliminate the human threat for years. Now it was done legally, with the full support of the Council. Humans would stay in their little corner of space and cause no more trouble. Prime Singer Yelnara agreed. Her Nexari collective had superior technology and would keep it that way. Without access to galactic trade and knowledge, humans would fall further behind. They would never catch up. The session ended with formal ceremonies. Aliens shook hands, tentacles, claws, and other appendages. They congratulated each other on a job well done. The galaxy was safe from human ambition, but in the small human section, 3 people packed their belongings with calm faces and steady hands. They had played their parts perfectly. For 50 years, humanity had acted exactly as the aliens expected, desperate, primitive, and harmless. Li Di-ho sealed his diplomatic papers for the last time. His career as Earth's ambassador was over, but something much more important was about to begin. Dr. Park Ji-woo closed her research files and locked her computer. She would miss working with alien scientists, but they had taught her everything she needed to know about their technology and their weaknesses. Commander Kim So-ra checked her watch. By now, her signal would have reached Earth. Director Yoon would be preparing the final phase of Project Lazarus. Dr. Choi would be running last-minute checks on the dimensional drive. The HSS Prometheus would be stirring from its long sleep. The 3 humans walked together toward the transport bay. Around them, aliens celebrated their victory over human arrogance. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. In a few hours, Li Di-ho would be back on Earth. He would report to his superiors and tell them the aliens had made their choice. There would be no more diplomatic solutions, no more pretending to be weak. The galaxy had mocked humanity for the last time. As their transport ship left Nexus Prime, Dr. Park Ji-woo looked back at the massive station. "They think they won," she said softly. "Let them think that," Lee Dae-ho replied. "For now." Commander Kim So-ra smiled for the first time in months. "I almost feel sorry for them." "Almost?" asked Dr. Park. "They had 50 years to learn about human nature," Kim So-ra said. "They chose to see only what they wanted to see. Now they will learn the truth." The transport ship jumped to faster than light speed, carrying the last human diplomats away from the Galactic Council. Behind them, aliens continued their celebration, completely unaware that they had just awakened something that had been waiting patiently in the shadows between dimensions. The vote was complete. The restrictions were in place. Humanity had been officially dismissed as a threat to galactic civilization. Soon, very soon, they would discover how wrong they had been. Deep beneath the Gobi Desert, Director Yoon Tae-min stood in front of a wall of screens showing data streams that would make alien scientists weep with envy. The facility around him stretched for miles underground, hidden from every sensor known to galactic civilization. Here, humanity's greatest secret had been growing for 23 years. The message from Dr. Park Ji-woo had arrived 30 minutes ago. 3 signals, 2 short, 1 long, then 3 short. Protocol Lazarus was now active. "Sir," said Dr. Choi Han-sol, looking up from his workstation. "All dimensional barriers are stable. The Prometheus is ready for emergence." Director Yoon nodded but did not smile. This moment had been planned since first contact with alien civilizations. Earth's leaders had made a choice that day. Let the galaxy think humans were primitive while secretly developing technology that would reshape the universe. Agent Nam Hee-jin entered the control room carrying a data pad. Her job for the past decade had been to monitor alien communications and society. She knew their weaknesses better than they knew themselves. "The council vote was unanimous," she reported. "Humanity is restricted to the Sol system for 100 years minimum. They're celebrating." "Of course they are," said Director Yoon. "They believe they've solved their human problem." Dr. Choi pulled up holographic displays showing the dimensional pocket where their greatest achievement waited. The numbers looked impossible, but every human scientist in the facility knew they were real. "Explain it to me one more time," Director Yoon said to his chief scientist. "I want to be absolutely certain." Dr. Choi nodded and activated a 3-dimensional model. 23 years ago, we discovered that alien dimensional science was backwards. They use brute force to punch holes between spaces. We learned to fold space itself. The hologram showed 2 approaches. The alien method looked like breaking through walls. The human method looked like origami, elegant, precise, and incredibly efficient. While they build engines to force their way through dimensions, Dr. Choi continued, we built spaces that exist in multiple dimensions at once. The Prometheus isn't just hidden. It exists in a layer of reality that alien sensors cannot detect. Agent Nam pulled up another display. "But that's not the important part. Tell him about the weapons." Dr. Choi's expression grew serious. "Conventional weapons fire projectiles or energy through normal space. Alien weapons are more advanced but follow the same principles. Our weapons fire through folded space-time." Director Yoon studied the technical data. Even after all these years, the implications were staggering. "So we can shoot around corners that don't exist?" "More than that," said Dr. Choi. "We can fire from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our targets experience attacks from directions that are physically impossible in normal space." The control room was filled with soft humming as hundreds of technicians prepared for the greatest revelation in human history. Many of them had been born in this facility, raised from childhood to understand technologies that the galaxy's greatest minds could not imagine. "Sir," called out Engineer Oh Dong-wook from across the room, "dimensional fold generators are at full power. The Prometheus is requesting permission to phase into normal space." Director Yoon looked at the massive display showing their hidden fleet. 12 ships like the Prometheus waited in pocket dimensions around key systems throughout the galaxy. Each one was invisible, undetectable, and armed with weapons that alien science said were impossible. But the ships were not the most important part of Project Lazarus. The most important part was the thousands of humans who had lived their entire lives in dimensional space, developing technologies and abilities that no alien could comprehend. "Show me the crew reports," Director Yoon ordered. Captain Ryu Ji-hoon's image appeared on screen. He looked calm and confident, exactly what Director Yoon wanted in the commander of humanity's most advanced warship. "Prometheus crew ready for emergence," Captain Ryu reported. "All dimensional systems functioning perfectly. We can phase into normal space at any location within 6 hours." "What about the other ships?" asked Agent Nam. Lieutenant Bae Soo-young's voice came through the communication system. "All fleet vessels report ready status. We have ships positioned near every major alien military installation. They won't know what hit them." Dr. Choi brought up historical data. "It's important to remember how we got here. When aliens first made contact with Earth, they expected us to be amazed by their technology. We were, but not in the way they thought." The displays showed recordings from first contact 50 years ago. Human scientists had studied every piece of alien technology they could access, but instead of copying it, they had looked for better ways to achieve the same results. "They gave us dimensional travel as a gift," Agent Nam said with bitter humor. "They wanted to help the poor primitive humans. They had no idea we would improve on their designs within 5 years." Director Yoon remembered those early days. Earth's government had faced a choice: reveal their rapid progress and risk alien interference, or hide their achievements and let the galaxy underestimate humanity. The decision had been unanimous. "Operation Primitive was a complete success," he said. "For 50 years we've shown them exactly what they expected to see. Struggling colonies, basic technology, internal conflicts. Meanwhile, we built this." He gestured to the screens showing their hidden empire. Manufacturing stations that existed in folded space, producing materials that normal physics said were impossible. Research facilities where human scientists had solved problems that alien minds could not even understand. And ships, hundreds of ships, waiting in dimensional pockets throughout the galaxy. "The hardest part wasn't building the technology," said Dr. Choi. "The hardest part was acting stupid for half a century." Engineer O called out again. "Sir, we're receiving reports from our observation posts. Alien fleets are already moving to enforce the travel restrictions. The Valkyrians are sending 3 battle groups to the Sol system border." "Perfect," said Director Yoon. "Agent Nam, what's the status on Colony World Kepler 442b? Admiral Ko Sung-ho reports that Valkyrian forces are approaching. They're broadcasting surrender demands and preparing for what they think will be target practice." Director Yoon smiled for the first time that day. "And Admiral Ko is playing his part?" "Perfectly. He's responding with messages about desperate resistance and human courage. The Valkyrians think they're about to crush a pathetic defense force." Dr. Choi activated another display. "The beautiful thing is that we didn't lie to them. We really do have desperate courage and pathetic defense forces. We just also have dimensional technology that makes their best ships look like wooden boats." The screens, they could see the Valkyrian fleet approaching Kepler 442b. The alien commanders were probably laughing, expecting an easy victory that would demonstrate human weakness to the entire galaxy. "They're about to learn why humans study history," said Agent Nam. "Every great power in history fell because they underestimated their enemies." Director Yoon opened a communication channel to every human ship and station in dimensional space. Thousands of people who had dedicated their lives to this moment looked back at him from screens throughout the facility. "Today, humanity stops pretending to be weak," he announced. "Operation Primitive is over. Operation Lazarus begins now." Cheers erupted throughout the facility. Engineers and scientists who had worked in secret for decades finally saw their moment arriving. The greatest deception in galactic history was about to be revealed. "Captain Ryu," Director Yoon said to the Prometheus commander, "take your ship to Kepler 442b. Show the Valkyrians what human engineering can really accomplish." "With pleasure, sir," Captain Ryu replied. "How much should we reveal?" "Everything," said Director Yoon. "It's time for the galaxy to see what humans can do when we stop playing games." Dr. Choi made final adjustments to the dimensional fold generators. The process of bringing a ship from dimensional space into normal reality was complex, but they had practiced it thousands of times. Dimensional barriers dropping in 60 seconds, he announced. Agent Nam monitored alien communications throughout the galaxy. Valkyrian ships are still broadcasting their surrender demands. They have no idea what's about to happen. Sir, said Engineer O, all other fleet vessels are requesting permission to reveal themselves. Director Yoon considered this. 12 ships suddenly appearing throughout the galaxy would shock every alien civilization. It would prove that humans had been watching them, studying them, preparing for this moment. Not yet, he decided. Let the Prometheus make the first impression. The other ships will reveal themselves when the aliens try to respond. On the main screen, they could see telemetry from the dimensional pocket containing the Prometheus. The massive ship was stirring to life, its impossible engines preparing to fold space around it. 30 seconds, announced Dr. Choi. Director, Yoon thought about the 50 years of careful planning that had led to this moment. Humans had endured mockery, insults, and restrictions while secretly building the most advanced civilization in galactic history. 15 seconds. The control room fell silent except for the humming of dimensional generators. 10 seconds. Every person in the facility held their breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, emergence complete. The screens lit up with data as the HSS Promethe. The colony world of Kepler 442b was small and peaceful. Its settlers had come from Earth 20 years ago, looking for a quiet place to raise families and grow crops. The planet had one city, 3 farming towns, and a small spaceport that handled cargo ships twice a month. Admiral Ko Sung-ho stood on the bridge of the colony defense station, watching Valkyrian warships approach on his screens. He looked worried and desperate, exactly as he was supposed to look. His crew of 12 officers maintained the same expression of hopeless determination. "Admiral," said his communications officer, "the Valkyrians are hailing us." "Put them through," Ko replied, making his voice sound shaky. War Marshal Thaxunor appeared on the main screen. He was tall and purple with 4 arms and eyes that glowed with cruel amusement. Behind him, the bridge of his massive warship bustled with activity. "Human colony commander," Thaxunor said in accented English. "I am War Marshal Thaxunor of the Valkyrian Empire. Your species has been restricted to your home system by order of the Galactic Council. This colony is now illegal." Admiral Ko pretended to wipe sweat from his forehead. "War Marshal, please. These are families, farmers and children. We're not hurting anyone." "That is irrelevant," the alien replied. "You will evacuate this world immediately or face the consequences." We can't," Ko said, letting his voice break slightly. "Our transport ships are old. We don't have enough fuel to reach Earth. Please, give us time to arrange evacuation." Thaxunor's laugh was like breaking glass. "Time? Humans had 50 years to prove yourselves worthy of galactic citizenship. You failed. Now you face the price of your arrogance." Behind the War Marshal, Valkyrian officers pointed at their screens and laughed. This was going to be even easier than they had expected. The Human Defense Force consisted of 3 outdated patrol boats and a communication station. "I am broadcasting this demonstration to every world in the galaxy," Thaxunor announced. "Let all civilizations see what happens when inferior species refuse to accept their place." Captain Shin Mi-kyung sat in the cockpit of her fighter, listening to the conversation. Her ship looked like a museum piece, battered hull, outdated weapons, engines that barely functioned. The Valkyrians would dismiss it as scrap metal. They had no idea that her antique fighter could phase in and out of normal space at will, "Defense units," Admiral Ko said over the radio, making his voice sound resigned. "Prepare for hopeless last stand. We'll give these families time to reach the shelters." The Valkyrian fleet moved into attack formation. 8 massive warships, each one powerful enough to destroy a moon. Their weapons were charged and ready. This would be a quick, clean demonstration of superior firepower. War Marshal Thaxunor was enjoying himself. "Human Commander, you have one final chance to surrender. Submit now, and we will make your deaths quick." Admiral Ko looked at his officers. Every one of them was fighting not to smile. They had rehearsed this moment for years, waiting for the day when humanity would stop pretending to be weak. "We are Americans," Ko said, using words that would confuse the aliens. "We don't surrender, we don't give up, and we protect our families." "Then, you die for nothing," Thaxunar replied. "All ships, commence bombardment." The Valkyrian warships opened fire. Streams of plasma and particle beams lanced toward the small human ships and the colony below. The attacks should have destroyed everything in seconds. Instead, space began to ripple. The first sign something was wrong came from the Valkyrian sensor stations. Their instruments detected massive gravitational anomalies around the human colony. Space-time itself seemed to be bending and twisting in impossible ways. "What is that?" Thaxunar demanded, staring at readings that made no sense. His science officer looked confused and frightened. "War Marshal, we're detecting dimensional distortions throughout this system. The levels are off our scales. Impossible. Humans don't have dimensional technology." But the evidence was right in front of them. Reality was shifting around the human colony like water around a stone. Their weapons fire was being deflected by barriers that shouldn't exist. Captain Shin Mi-kyung chose that moment to demonstrate human fighter tactics. Her ancient-looking ship suddenly vanished from normal space, reappeared behind a Valkyrian cruiser, fired a single shot that punched through its shields like paper, then disappeared. Again. "Report," Thaxunar screamed. "How did that primitive fighter penetrate our defenses?" "Sir, their weapons are firing from multiple dimensional angles simultaneously. Our shields aren't designed to stop attacks from directions that don't exist in normal space." The War Marshal felt the first touch of real fear. This was not going according to plan. Then the sensors detected something that made every Valkyrian officer stop breathing. Something massive was emerging from the dimensional distortions. Something that dwarfed their largest battleship. Something that shouldn't be possible. The HSS Prometheus materialized like a mountain appearing in empty space. Its hull was dark metal that seemed to absorb light, covered with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. The ship was 3 miles long and bristled with weapons that existed partially outside normal dimensions. "By the void," whispered the Valkyrian science officer. "What is that thing?" War Marshal Thaxunar stared at the impossible ship in front of him. Every instrument on his bridge was screaming warnings. The gravitational signature alone should have torn his fleet apart, yet somehow the space around them remained stable. "All ships," he ordered, his voice shaking. "Full power to weapons. Destroy that ship." The Valkyrian fleet unleashed everything they had. 8 warships fired simultaneously, pouring enough energy to vaporize a small moon into the strange human vessel. The attacks passed harmlessly through sections of the ship that flickered in and out of reality. Other weapons struck the hull and simply vanished, their energy redirected into dimensional spaces that the Valkyrians could not detect. Captain Ryu Ji-hoon's calm voice came from the Prometheus, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Valkyrian fleet, this is Captain Ryu Ji-hoon of the Human Defense Force. You are firing on a peaceful colony protected by the Sol Defense Treaty. Cease your attack immediately." "Sol Defense Treaty?" Thaxunar sputtered. "There is no such treaty." "There is now," Captain Ryu replied. "Article 1. Any attack on human civilians will be met with appropriate force. Article 2. Appropriate force is defined as whatever level of response ensures the safety of human populations." Lieutenant Bae Soo-young's voice came from the Prometheus tactical station. "Captain, shall I demonstrate our defensive capabilities?" "Proceed with non-lethal demonstration," Captain Ryu ordered. The Prometheus moved in ways that broke physics. It accelerated without engines, turned without thrusters, and somehow existed in multiple positions at the same time. Valkyrian sensors showed the ship in 6 different locations simultaneously. Then it began to return fire. The human weapons were unlike anything in galactic military doctrine. Instead of firing projectiles or energy beams through normal space, they fired through folded dimensions Valkyrian ships found themselves hit from angles that couldn't exist. One cruiser was struck from below and above at the same moment, despite being surrounded by empty space. Another ship's shields were bypassed entirely when the human weapons emerged inside the shield perimeter from higher dimensions. But the Prometheus wasn't trying to destroy the Valkyrian fleet. It was making a point. Every shot was precisely calculated to disable systems without killing crew members. Weapons were destroyed, engines were shut down, life support remained intact. It was a demonstration of accuracy that should have been impossible. War Marshal Thaxunor watched his proud fleet being systematically dismantled by a single human ship. His weapons were useless. His shields were meaningless. His advanced Valkyrian technology looked like stone tools compared to what the humans had built. "This is impossible," he kept repeating. "Humans are primitives. They use chemical rockets. They fight with metal bullets." Captain Ryu's voice came again, still perfectly calm. "War Marshal, you are broadcasting this engagement to the galaxy. Are you prepared to explain to your superiors how the Valkyrian Empire's finest warships were defeated by what you called primitive humans?" The truth was starting to sink in. Every major power in the galaxy was watching this battle. The Valkyrian Empire's reputation for military superiority was being destroyed in real time. "What do you want?" Thaxunor asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I want you to leave," Captain Ryu replied. "Take your disabled ships and return to Valkyrian space. Tell your empire what you learned here today." "And what did we learn?" "That humans have been watching you for 50 years. That we know your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. That the species you dismissed as primitive has been preparing for this moment since first contact." Engineer Oh Dong-wook's voice came from the Prometheus engineering section. "Captain, all dimensional systems are operating perfectly. We can maintain this demonstration indefinitely." The War Marshal looked around his bridge. Half his instruments were dead. His weapons were offline, his engines were barely functioning, and the human ship showed no signs of damage or strain. "How?" he asked. "How did you develop this technology without us knowing?" "You saw exactly what you expected to see," Captain Ryu answered. "Struggling colonies, internal conflicts, primitive technology. Captain Ryu Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the HSS Prometheus, watching the Valkyrian fleet retreat into the darkness. His crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency, monitoring systems that existed partially outside normal reality. The ship hummed with power that alien science could not explain. "Lieutenant Bay," he said to his tactical officer, "open communications to all major galactic powers. It's time for humanity to introduce itself properly." Lieutenant Bay Su-young nodded and activated the ship's communication array. The signal that went out was unlike anything the galaxy had ever received. It transmitted simultaneously through normal space, hyperspace, and dimensional channels that most species didn't know existed. Within minutes, every major civilization in the galaxy was receiving the same message. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council emergency session was interrupted by signals that bypassed all their security systems. On distant worlds, alien leaders stopped their meetings to stare at screens showing impossible readings. Captain Ryu's image appeared on 10,000 displays throughout the galaxy. His calm, professional demeanor was a sharp contrast to the chaos his ship had just caused. "Leaders of the galactic community," he began, "I am Captain Ryu Ji-hoon of the Human Defense Force vessel HSS Prometheus. Today, humanity officially ends its period of observation and begins active participation in galactic affairs." On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Vextar stared at the transmission in disbelief. "This is impossible. We just voted to restrict human travel. They can't have ships outside their system." Prime Singer Yelnara of the Nexari Collective was studying sensor data from the battle at Kepler 442b. "Their technology readings are extraordinary. How did they develop dimensional manipulation without our knowledge?" Captain Ryu continued his broadcast. "For 50 years, humanity has watched and learned. You believed we were primitive because we allowed you to see only what we wanted you to see. Today, that deception ends." Engineer Oh Dong-wook called out from his station. "Captain, I'm detecting massive dimensional distortions throughout the galaxy. All fleet vessels are requesting permission to reveal themselves. Grant permission, Captain Ryu replied. It's time for the galaxy to understand the scope of human capabilities. Across dozens of star systems, reality began to shift. Near the Valkyrian homeworld, space rippled as the HSS Intrepid emerged from its dimensional hiding place. Close to Nixari space, the HSS Determination materialized from folded dimensions. Around every major alien military installation, human ships appeared as if reality itself was being rewritten. The alien response was immediate and terrified. Emergency sessions convened on every major world. Military fleets scrambled to respond to ships that shouldn't exist. Scientists stared at readings that violated everything they knew about physics. 12 ships, whispered an alien admiral somewhere in the galaxy. They have 12 ships like that monster. But the ships themselves were only part of the revelation. As each vessel emerged, it transmitted data about humanity's true technological achievements. The aliens saw manufacturing stations that existed in folded space, research facilities in higher dimensions, and populations of humans who had lived their entire lives beyond normal reality. Captain Ryu allowed the galaxy to process this information for several minutes before continuing his broadcast. You mocked our chemical rockets while we built engines that fold space itself. You laughed at our metal bullets while we developed weapons that fire through dimensions you cannot perceive. You dismissed our short lives while we built civilizations that exist outside your concept of time. Lieutenant Bay monitored the alien communication channels. Captain, we're receiving thousands of signals, military alerts, diplomatic protests, requests for negotiation. The crystalline minds are asking if this is some kind of test. Let them wonder, Captain Ryu replied. Oh, and Lieutenant? Make sure our response to any hostile movements is educational. The first test came from the Nexari Collective. 3 of their advanced exploration ships approached the HSS Determination, apparently trying to scan its hull and understand its technology. The human ship's response was swift and precise. It phased partially out of normal space, causing the alien scanners to register readings that made no sense. Then it demonstrated its weapons by firing through dimensional space to hit targets. On the opposite side of the system, shots that traveled through higher dimensions and emerged exactly where intended. The Nexari ships retreated immediately. Point made, said Captain Ryu with satisfaction. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was in chaos. Representatives who had been laughing at human weakness hours earlier now faced the reality that they had severely miscalculated. High Counselor Vexistar was receiving reports from Valkyrian space that made his purple skin turn pale. War Marshal Thax Unor reports total defeat. His entire battle group was disabled by a single human vessel. They could have destroyed his fleet but chose not to. Why would they show mercy? Asked another delegate. Because, said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber, they wanted us alive to deliver a message. The speaker was Dr. Park Ji-woo, who had returned to Nexus Prime as humanity's new representative. She looked very different from the quiet scientist who had left in disgrace. Her eyes held confidence and knowledge that made the aliens uncomfortable. Dr. Park, said Vextar, what is the meaning of this? Demonstration? It's not a demonstration, she replied. It's a revelation. For 50 years you've been asking the wrong question. You kept wondering if humans were advanced enough to join galactic civilization. The real question was whether galactic civilization was advanced enough for humans to reveal themselves. The chamber erupted in angry voices, but Dr. Park continued calmly. Every human colony you thought was struggling has been carefully designed to hide our real capabilities. Every desperate request for technology has been a way to study your limitations. Every sign of human weakness has been a performance designed to keep you from looking too closely at what we were really building. Prime Singer Yelnara stood up, her blue skin glowing with agitation. You're claiming that humans have superior technology to the Nexari Collective? I'm not claiming anything, Doctor, Park replied. The evidence speaks for itself. Your most advanced ships couldn't even scan our vessels properly. Your weapons couldn't touch our hulls. Your sensors can't detect our dimensional technology. Captain Ryu's voice came through the chamber's communication system. Honored delegates, humanity is prepared to demonstrate the full extent of our capabilities. Would you like to see what our ships can do when we're not concerned about minimizing casualties? The threat was clear but politely stated. Every alien in the chamber understood that their survival depended on humanity's continued restraint. "What do you want from us?" asked Vextar, his arrogance completely gone. "Respect," Dr. Park answered simply. "For 50 years you've dismissed us as primitives. You've restricted our travel, limited our trade, and treated us like children who needed your guidance. Today that changes." Engineer O's voice came from the Prometheus. "Captain, I'm detecting mobilization of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. 47 warships moving toward human space." "Thank you, Engineer O," Captain Ryu replied. "Lieutenant Bay, please demonstrate our rapid response capabilities." The HSS Defender, which had been positioned near Zephyrian space, immediately moved to intercept the alien fleet. But instead of engaging in normal space combat, it did something that redefined the aliens' understanding of warfare. The human ship surrounded the entire Zephyrian fleet with dimensional barriers, trapping them in a pocket of folded space. The aliens found themselves unable to move, communicate, or fight back. They were completely helpless, suspended in a reality that human science controlled completely. "The Zephyrian fleet has been contained," reported Lieutenant Bay. "They are unharmed but completely immobilized." "Orders? Release them in 1 hour," Captain Ryu replied. "That should give them time to reconsider their hostile intentions." The demonstration sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Humanity had just trapped an entire battle fleet without firing a shot. The implications were staggering. Dr. Park addressed the stunned council. "We could have done this to any of your fleets at any time over the past 20 years. We chose not to because we hoped you would eventually see us as equals. Today's vote proves that hope was misplaced." "But how?" stammered the insect-like Zephyrian representative. "How did you develop such technology without our knowledge?" "Because you never looked beyond your prejudices," Dr. Park answered. "You saw struggling human colonies and never noticed the dimensional distortions around them. You saw desperate requests for help and never wondered why our technology improved so quickly afterward. You saw what you expected to see." Captain Ryu's broadcast continued to reach every corner of the galaxy. "Humanity extends an offer to all civilizations. Those who wish to engage with us as equals will find us generous partners. Those who continue to see us as inferior will discover that we have been preparing for that possibility as well." The message was clear. The galaxy could choose cooperation or conflict, but they could no longer choose to dismiss humanity. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Lieutenant Bay monitored the flood of communications from alien governments. "Captain, we're receiving formal diplomatic requests." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any meeting in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives who had been celebrating humanity's restriction just hours earlier now sat in stunned silence, trying to understand how completely they had misjudged the situation. Captain Lee Dae-ho entered the great chamber, but this time he was not alone. Behind him walked Fleet Admiral Park Kyung-min, a woman whose calm presence filled the enormous space with quiet authority. Dr. Jang Hee-soo, Earth's lead diplomatic strategist, carried data pads containing information that would reshape galactic politics forever. The most important figure, however, was the one who appeared on the chamber's main screen. President Moon Jae-young of Earth sat in her office in Seoul, looking directly at the assembled aliens with eyes that held both disappointment and determination. High Counselor Vextar stood to address the humans, but his voice lacked the arrogance it had carried that morning. "President Moon, we did not expect—" "You did not expect us to be anything more than the primitives you wanted us to be," President Moon interrupted, her voice carrying the weight of 50 years of careful planning. "The question now is whether you can accept the reality of what humanity has become." Dr. Jang stepped forward and activated a holographic display that showed the true extent of human civilization. The aliens saw manufacturing stations in folded space, research facilities in higher dimensions, and cities that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. "For 50 years, Dr. Young explained, You have been interacting with less than 10% of human civilization. The rest has been hidden in dimensional space, watching, learning, and preparing for this day. Fleet Admiral Park approached the central platform. Her uniform bore decorations that no alien recognized, medals for campaigns fought in dimensions they couldn't perceive. The Human Defense Force consists of 2,000 vessels operating in normal space and dimensional pockets throughout the galaxy, she announced. We have been monitoring your military installations, your trade routes, and your communications for decades. We know your capabilities, your strategies, and your weaknesses better than you do. The chamber erupted in frightened murmurs. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just hidden their technology. They had been conducting intelligence operations on a galactic scale. Prime singer Yelnara of the Nixari Collective stood up, her blue skin pale with shock. You've been spying on us for decades? We've been learning, President Moon replied from the screen. When you first made contact with Earth, we faced a choice. We could reveal our rapid technological development and risk interference from species that saw us as a threat. Or we could study you quietly while appearing harmless. So you chose deception, accused Vextar. We chose survival, Captain Lee replied. Your own records show what happens to species that develop too quickly. They face restrictions, interventions, sometimes conquest. We decided to avoid that fate by controlling what you knew about us. Dr. Zhang activated another display, showing communications between various alien governments. These are recordings from your private diplomatic channels. For 20 years, you've been discussing the human problem and debating various solutions for dealing with us. The aliens in the chamber shifted uncomfortably as they heard their own voices discussing humanity, like a pest to be controlled. The Velkarian Empire proposed military occupation of human colonies. Dr. Zhang continued. The Nixari Collective suggested technological restrictions to keep us dependent on alien trade. Even the supposedly neutral crystalline mines supported limiting human expansion. President Moon leaned forward in her chair. So, we gave you what you wanted. A human species that seemed primitive, dependent, and easily controlled. Meanwhile, our real civilization grew beyond your ability to detect or interfere with it. Fleet Admiral Park brought up tactical displays showing human ships positioned throughout the galaxy. We have vessels near every major alien homeworld, every important military base, every critical trade hub. We could have paralyzed galactic civilization at any time over the past decade. Why didn't you? Asked the insect-like Zephyrian representative, his voice shaking. Because we hoped you would eventually see us as equals rather than threats, President Moon answered. We wanted to join galactic civilization as partners, not conquerors. But today's vote proved that hope was false, added Captain Lee. You chose to see us as primitives to be contained rather than beings deserving respect. The chamber fell silent as the aliens absorbed this information. They had not just underestimated humanity, they had been completely deceived about the nature of human civilization for half a century. Dr. Yang opened communications with the HSS Prometheus, still stationed near Kepler 442b. Captain Ryu's image appeared beside President Moon's, creating a visual link between Earth's leadership and humanity's military might. The demonstration at Kepler 442b was deliberately limited, Captain Ryu reported. We disabled Velkarian weapons without causing casualties, trapped the Zephyrian fleet without harming them, and revealed only basic dimensional technology. We could have done much more. Such as? Asked Vextar, though he seemed afraid of the answer. Engineer O's voice came from the Prometheus. Our weapons can fire through temporal dimensions, hitting targets before we pull the trigger. Our ships can exist in multiple locations simultaneously. We can manipulate local space-time to create barriers that exist outside normal physics. The technical implications made even the advanced Nexari scientists look sick with fear. Fleet Admiral Park addressed the Council directly. Humanity presents the galaxy with three options. First, you can accept us as equal partners in galactic civilization, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. What's the second option? Asked Prime Singer Yelnara. You can continue to see us as primitives to be controlled. Dr. Zhang replied, in which case we will withdraw from galactic society entirely and develop our own civilization independent of yours. And the third option? President Moon's expression grew cold. You can choose to see us as a threat to be eliminated. We are prepared for that possibility as well. The unspoken message was clear. Humanity had the power to defend itself against any conceivable alien attack, and possibly to launch attacks that the galaxy couldn't defend against. Captain Lee stepped forward. However, there is a fourth possibility that we prefer above all others, which is that you learn from this experience and help us build a better galactic civilization, one based on mutual respect rather than assumptions of superiority, one where species are judged by their actions rather than their apparent technology levels. Dr. Zhang activated a new display showing plans for joint research stations in dimensional space. Humanity is prepared to share certain technologies with species that demonstrate genuine partnership. We can help you develop defensive systems, improve your dimensional science, and explore realities you never imagined. But, added Fleet Admiral Park, these partnerships will be between equals. The days of aliens treating humans as junior partners or primitive cousins are over forever. President Moon stood up in her office, her image dominating the chamber's main screen. The Galactic Council voted to restrict humanity to our home system. We reject that restriction utterly. Human ships will travel wherever we choose, establish colonies where we see fit, and trade with whoever wishes to engage with us fairly. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Every alien present understood that the galaxy's power structure had changed forever. However, President Moon continued, we do not wish to rule over anyone. We want partners, not subjects. The choice of how to respond to humanity's revelation belongs to each species individually. Captain Ryu's voice came from the Prometheus. Those who choose partnership will find humanity generous and helpful. Those who choose hostility will discover that we have spent 50 years preparing for every possible threat. Dr. Zhang brought up a list of human technologies that could benefit alien civilizations, medical advances that could extend lifespans, energy systems that could power entire worlds, and dimensional science that could revolutionize galactic transportation. All of this is available to species that approach us with respect and genuine friendship, she explained. But it will never again be shared with those who see us as inferior. Fleet Admiral Park looked around the chamber at the stunned alien faces. Some of you are probably wondering if you can reverse this situation, if you can somehow force humanity back into the role of harmless primitives. She paused to let that thought sink in. We have been preparing for that possibility for decades. Every major alien military installation is monitored by human ships you cannot detect. Every critical system in your civilizations is vulnerable to weapons you cannot comprehend. Any attempt to use force against humanity will be met with responses that will redefine your understanding of warfare. President Moon's voice carried a note of sadness. We had hoped this day would come differently. We dreamed of revealing ourselves as partners ready to contribute to galactic civilization. Instead, we must reveal ourselves as a power that demands respect. But the future is still unwritten, added Captain Lee. Species that approach us with genuine respect will discover that humanity values friendship above all else. We want allies, not enemies. Dr. J.